2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
What does healthy masculinity have to do with recovery?
Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers.
We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
What does healthy masculinity have to do with recovery?
Brannon, we love this topic. This is going to be a good one today. We've got a good guest on. I'm going to read our review for the day. We've actually got a couple of really good reviews that have come in over the last couple of weeks. We must have hit some nerves with whatever we're talking about. So this one comes from APY10. It says, thanks for helping break the shame cycle. It says, thank you, Brannon and Tyler. I started my recovery a couple of years ago and find more and more joy in my recovery as I seek to overcome my shame. You guys have been a huge part for me overcoming that shame. You guys gave me the courage to be completely public about my recovery. It has truly changed my life and combated the shame. People have reached out with love, and some have reached out for help. I frequently share your episodes on social media and the things that I'm learning from you guys. My greatest takeaway from your podcast is how to break the shame cycle with myself and for my kids. I've learned that the best way our kids can learn and know God's unconditional love is by showing them our unconditional love. Their value is not based on righteousness or obedience to our rules and God's commandments. As we love them with their imperfections, then they will better understand God's love for them and learn to obey Him out of love rather than fear. A home filled with rigidity and control does not breed obedience out of love, but will likely breed disobedience within secrecy due to shame. Thanks for all you guys do to break this shame cycle. I love your podcast. Keep them coming.
Holy cow. That review had great content in it.
No kidding. There's a whole episode in that.
That right there's a warrior for truth. Someone with courage. Love it.
I love that, man. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for letting us know that we're making a difference. We do appreciate that feedback, and we're always looking to make ourselves better. So we appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome. I love to hear the shift that's happening and the permission to let go of the shame, come out of the hiding, just be more free and in the light. So, and really that's what we're going to talk about today. So we got an awesome guest on. Tyler knows him very well, and I know him as well. But John, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Just tell us a little bit about what's going on in your life and who you are and why you're here.
Um, okay, so I'm John. I'm probably just a really busy person lately. I started into a recovery journey about 9 years ago, and it's an ongoing thing, and I think it will always be an ongoing thing. But I'm committed enough to it that I went back to school working on a grad degree to be a counselor myself someday. But I've really appreciated the help I've had along this journey, and a lot of that has been with Tyler and with a lot of group work
Mm-hmm.
with Tyler.
I know, John, when I met you at one of our retreats. I think that was the first time I met you.
Yeah.
And you were in the early stages of hey, I'm going to go back to school. Like recovery was really becoming kind of this mission and this part of life purpose for you, I think. And I was like, awesome, John. Like that's good. I'm glad you're going to do it. And then here we are years later, and talk about follow through, right? You're well on your way.
Yeah, and I think probably when we met, it was a budding idea that I didn't really have a lot of confidence in, and yeah, that I have overcome. Well, I don't know, maybe overcome's a little strong word, but I really had to work on some anxiety that I have about myself and about um, my abilities and whether I'm willing to push and actually, because it's quite a career shift for me. But now we are quite a ways down the path, and I've started into an internship program and actually doing a little bit of counseling now. And I've learned a lot along the way.
Yeah.
So John, you came on with a really good question that I think would be a good one to just pose the way you posed it to us. And let's get into a discussion about that a little bit. And then we'll talk a little bit about this idea of masculinity that was kind of the beginning of the question.
Right. So the question is, and I think it's an important one, but what is finding my masculinity or understanding healthy masculinity? What does that have to do with recovery? And why is it important to recovery?
It is recovery. I mean, done, right? Like if you really understand masculinity, if you find your masculinity, then you're finding if you think about recovery, so many people get recovery wrong. They think of recovery first and foremost as sobriety. Like I'm touching my penis too much. I need to stop masturbating, stop looking at porn. And if I do that, then that's recovery. Like that has not that much to do with recovery, believe it or not. All of that behavior is the outcomes of the issue. The issue is you're recovering an understanding of who you really are. And when you do that and you figure out I'm a son of God, I'm noble, I'm of noble lineage, I'm a son of God, and as a man, I trust myself, I know myself, I have confidence, then you naturally step into your masculinity. So I know I'm just jumping off the deep end here. I get it.
Right.
But it's such a good question, John. But I think to go from point A to kind of what I'm talking about is kind of tricky, and it's not so clear cut, right?
Yeah, John, could I ask you ask you a question just to kind of get some more information here? Is that you said you've been in this process for 9 years now of recovery, which is an incredible process, and it sounds like you've grown in some confidence in things. But I'd like to know from you, like if you were to take snapshots of how you would define masculinity before you started your program, before you started your recovery, and to now, what did it look like then versus now? How has it changed?
That's a great question. I think that I think that I would say at the time, say if you really went back and took a snapshot that 9 years ago, I think I would have said prior to the D-Day, the discovery, I would have said that I thought I knew what masculinity was. I'm a dad and trying to lead my family and active in my religion, and all those things are part of my masculinity. But probably in reality, there were some big holes and some gaps. I was looking at it now, I can see I was really very unsure of myself. And so I acted a lot of times out of fear. I would be too aggressive at home and in conversations and in my relationship with my wife. And a lot of that stemmed from not being very sure of myself and who I am. Fast forward to now, another snapshot, and I'm hearing Brannon say these descriptors of what it's like to understand your masculinity. And I know I'm not there yet. Not that I haven't made a lot of headway, but I know that there's still more for me to know and to feel confidence in myself and in who I am, and in my relationship with other men, and my relationship in my family, and acting. I wouldn't even say 100% because I know you're not going to do that, but acting, trying to act, striving to act all the time, coming from a place of secure masculinity, where being a man means being a provider, being a protector, and but also showing love and cherishing my wife in that relationship, and having an acceptance for others around me.
Mm-hmm. You said something, John, that in just telling us a little bit about your journey into where you're at today, that really is interesting to me, is when you're talking about being a therapist and shifting careers and stepping into that. You said, I've had to kind of face some anxiety. And I'm just wondering, 9 years ago, kind of being unsure of who you are, and just coming out of addiction, and to sitting in that anxiety. How'd you do that?
Well, that wasn't an easy process, and it did take some time. I started to explore the idea of maybe shifting careers. Taking a step back further, I did a bachelor's degree back in the 90s that was in family and human development. And I think that my idea at the time was to be a family therapist. But
So it's always kind of been in you a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's
been calling to you.
Yeah, but sometimes we take a path that's just easy, or we don't put a lot of effort into. I'm just speaking of me, but I'm sure it's true of a lot of people. We just go down the road that is just before us, rather than making a conscious decision to, this is what I'm going to go into or go for, or what effort I'm going to be willing to put in. And I think probably that word willing is a lot of the key to it, that I had to gain a willingness to, accept this call, or to put in the effort that was going to take.
But you're talking about it, and it's like, okay, like I wanted to say good job, John, but the reality is so many men have this call inside of them. They have this purpose. But they do what you're talking about. They do what's easy, or they hide behind shame. They hide behind excuses. They don't want to face the fear, actually feel that discomfort, and have the courage to step into who they really are. And I think it's just awesome that here you are today, moving along this path. And I'm sure there's been a lot of steps into the dark, like not knowing exactly how all this is going to play out. There's probably been some real kind of fears of how adequate am I? How like, can I do this? How do you just keep kind of pushing into that?
One of the things that's coming up in my mind when you're talking about that is something that Tyler's talked about playing small, which basically is not showing up with the strength that you really have, and kind of taking the easy way out. And when I heard that, it wasn't actually something that was in group work. I'm trying to remember when I first heard it, but it wasn't actually directed at me. But Tyler kind of called somebody out on playing small, and not doing their best. And I probably have heard it myself too, directed at me, but it kind of offends me a little bit. It makes me look inwardly and go, am I really doing the best that I can do? Or am I even trying to do this best that I can do? And then there's that question of, what is your best?
Do you feel like no matter how much therapy you do, things really aren't getting better? As a man, do you feel stuck? Do you lack purpose? Are you unable to create safety and passion and intimacy in your relationships? Are you lacking connection to God? If you're relating to any of these things, then you need to come to our Rising Sun conference. Tyler and I have developed a process and an experience for men to shift into their power, to know who they truly are, to experience their purpose, and learn how to connect to God. So go to risingsunconference.com. Now that's Rising Sun as in S-O-N, conference.com, and sign up there as soon as you can because space is limited. We'll see you there.
I attended a men's retreat with Brannon, Chase, and Tyler a couple of years ago. The setting was pretty phenomenal, and it felt like the environment that they chose set us up for success from the start. I knew a few of the guys from another event I had attended, but most of the participants were new to me. And I remember thinking at the beginning how such a diverse group of guys was going to mesh throughout the retreat. There were a couple of really important takeaways that have stayed with me since the retreat. First, I was reminded that what we see on the outside is rarely what we see on the inside. As we spent time with one another, as we worked at dropping the facade that we all tend to put up, especially in new groups of people, it was like we were getting to know an entirely different group of people than we'd met on our first night. And all of the retreat leaders were able to help us quickly develop a trust amongst one another that helped us feel like we could be vulnerable. I loved hearing about the things that the rest of the participants were working on in their lives, and I found that many of them were the same things that I wanted to work on in my life. I think by far the best part of the experience was the relationships I was able to build with some of the other participants. There were times throughout the retreat where we were given free time to recreate or socialize with the others, and I can remember one experience where I was paired up with another participant. We headed out to do some fishing, and he and I just spent the entire afternoon, probably about 3 hours. We didn't get a bite, and it was one of the most enjoyable afternoons I've ever spent. Because of the work that we were doing as a group, our walls were both down, and the conversation that we had felt like it was between two old friends rather than a couple of guys who had just gotten to know each other for a few days. If you're thinking about improving yourself or wanting to deepen your relationship with God and with others, or if you want to surround yourself with great guys who are living authentic lives and will encourage you to do the same, I would highly suggest one of these retreats.
Or am I even trying to do this best that I can do? And then there's that question of what is your best? And right now, when I see people and they're struggling for sobriety and people I'm working with, I think maybe this right now is the best they can do right now because that's what they're doing, and I can accept that. And at the same time, I can expect them to man up a little and push a little harder and really do better than they're doing. And I don't think it's something that happens overnight. For me, it took me, I'm thinking it was more than a year to go from this blossoming idea of, hey, I'm going to go back to school, to actually getting into a program and starting that clock ticking down to the first day of classes.
John, I love what you said there about playing small. And I think there's probably a lot of guys listening right now that can relate to that, not even knowing what they just heard, but the idea of playing small is where I disappear from what Brannon was talking about, my purpose, my passion, the things that mean something to me. Because if I were to step into those places, I'd feel vulnerable, or I'd be afraid of what people would think of me, or I better play it safe. And the truth is that playing it safe that way, if we're going back to your question, playing it safe that way is what kills your soul. And when you kill your soul, you're left in a cubicle looking around, wondering where you're going to find life. And guess where life starts to appear? It's in your addiction. It's, I'm going to go get a little bit of a rush here. I'm going to get 10 minutes or 5 minutes away from my desk there. I'm going to go and avoid all the pain that I have at home because I don't know how to go home and step into being the kind of husband, father I want to be. And so I end up in my addiction as a way of trying to cope with the holes that you were talking about, which are those voids inside of us that say, this is who I am. And that's calling to us all the time, regardless of whether we want to acknowledge it or not.
But Tyler, I do want to tack on to what you're saying. The trap is set really early, in almost before we even know it. Sometimes where we have traumas, we have father wounds, we have things that happen that we don't even realize are father wounds. And Eldridge talks about the question that every man has, which is, do I have what it takes? And it's interesting, if you have these traps set early and these traumas that say, you're not lovable, you're not worth spending time with, I'm going to beat you, I'm going to hurt you, I'm going to abuse you because I don't love you, whatever it is, right? And then that question arises to every man, do I have what it takes? And you automatically know your answer that I don't. Like I have these wounds that have already answered those questions. You then grow up to be an adult and you want to go live your purpose. Well, what do you know? Your purpose is going to take stepping into something. It's going to take some courage. It's going to take some confidence. It's going to take some security. And those wounds will speak to you. And those identities will come out and they'll say, no. You already know that you don't have what it takes here or there. So don't step in. And John, as you're talking, I love what you're saying. It sounds like a 9-year process. The wounds got the best of you. Sounds like the addiction was kind of there, like, taking care of your needs and causing problems at the same time. But here you are saying, no, like I am not going to believe what I thought about my identity 9 years ago, and I'm shifting. And as I shift, I step into this anxiety, this fear. I'm sure you're discovering new things about yourself and gaining more confidence. Is that, I don't want to speak for you, John, but
I want to fill in some of that there because insecurity is still there. I mean, even right now, just sitting here talking and being vulnerable, my heart's racing. I'm feeling it,
mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to put a in my mind what's driving that. And the fear and the insecurity and the questions, they're still there. I don't know where you guys are at, but for me, that's still an everyday battle. Some days I pay more attention to it than others, but it's still I just assume maybe at this point that it's going to be something I just have to keep working on for a long time. I still am asking myself the questions. Have I really got it? I get done with working with someone for a session and I'm like, was that worth their time to be with me? Was that helpful? I feel just a real strong, and I think a lot of guys feel this. They start to get some sobriety. They start to get some healing, and they start to feel just a little bit good about themselves. And they're like, I want to share this feeling with other people. This is important and this is big, but how can I? And I think it's part of that continued growth. It's probably the more important part than finding sobriety is to finding that outreach and that, and not everybody needs to become a therapist, of course, and I've seen other guys do it different ways, but finding that way to reach out and step into that manhood. I want to bring up another idea in this and maybe kick this around a little bit. I'm thinking back to that time before D-Day, before this journey, this chapter or a part of my life. I don't know that I really had a lot of close friends. I would say probably didn't have a lot of close friends at all, but I certainly didn't have a lot of close friends that were guys. I just didn't have a connection to other men. My ideas of masculinity and what it is to be a man, a lot of it was with my father, and I had one brother that I grew up with, and there's gaps there. But in this journey and doing some group work, I got to know other men and got to see them in their flawed ways but still respect them and see that, hey, these guys have value, even if they don't know it, but to me they do. And then it starts to build and grow and you get more of it. But the idea comes back to you saying, maybe I'm that guy. Maybe I have value among my peers, among other men. And that works at it, but that voice is really loud still. And even to me today, saying, are you sure? Are you just faking this?
Mm-hmm.
John, I like what you said there, because what you're saying is that you are a continual work in progress. And let's be honest, courage, which I believe is something that all of us, if we look at like the masculine heart, we're all drawn to that word, courage. Courage doesn't really exist without some level of vulnerability or fear, right? You wouldn't need to be courageous if there wasn't some risk involved. So for you to be in the space you're at now versus where you were at 9 years ago, you're still on the precipice, pushing the edges of where your comfort zone is. and you're stepping into that discomfort every day. But that's the key here is that you're stepping into it. And that's what's missing, I think, for a lot of men when they kind of get stuck, is they don't have the courage to step into it. And that ties into the second point you made, which was that when you have, and I think there's kind of a false sense of, I think this is part of toxic masculinity is that you're supposed to be the lone man. Like, we're all supposed to be the lone rider on our horse in the Western movie. And instead, when you have a team, when you got a team of other men who are flawed men, but stepping into courage, it provides structure and strength, and it gives you permission to actually step in yourself to those same places you see and expect your brothers to be stepping into as well. And that helps with the act of courage.
I got to drive home what both of you were saying. Two major ingredients from going from this floundering place of insecurity to this really secure place of healthy masculinity is stepping into fear and practicing courage and getting connection from other men. And Eldridge says masculinity bestows masculinity. I have a boys trip planned this weekend, and
that's right.
Tyler's going on it, and I can't wait. I can't wait to just chill with my boys, just be there, just connect. Like, what I know that as a man, we are designed to pack up and connect with other men. It's part of who we are. And but the thing about it is, if you don't love yourself, if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to be vulnerable enough to really experience that connection. And then the masculinity won't bestow the masculinity. And don't get me wrong, we're not talking about get together with the boys and just be raunchy and tough and this. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about masculinity. We're talking about get together with the boys and support each other in just in knowing who we are and trusting ourselves and being, John, I'm different than you. Tyler, I'm different than you. And I don't need to get together with my boys who love me, who want me to be me and try to turn into them. I'm just going to feel loved and secure and supported by them, no matter who I am or what I've done. Right.
Exactly. And Brannon, I'm looking forward to that too, man. Like it's, and I know the reason I'm craving it so much is because I know that when we get together and when we're face to face, we're going to actually let even our own walls come down a little bit. And there's going to be some deep discussions, and there's going to be some real conversation about the real issues that all of us are facing in our lives. And there is something that's extremely valuable to that I don't think a lot of men in our world have today, because we've been fed this line that it's weakness to show any of that.
Yeah. And there's also this healthy banter, and I know I'm going to get made fun of, and when Tyler or Rex, my two brothers, make fun of me, it's just like they're just saying they love me. I just love it.
Oh, Brannon, let me tell a story about last year's boys trip. All right. Last year's boys trip was the same trip. We went down to Texas, hang out with cousins and stuff. And for some reason, on the very first day of the trip, it was my turn to take the heat. And for 3 hours in the car, I just got basically verbally undressed by all of you guys about all the things that I need to change in my life. And you know what? The funniest thing is that if it was told me by anybody else, I would have taken total offense. But when you guys were saying it, was like, it actually just hit home for the truth of what I already knew. And I took it to God, and my answer came back that, yeah, I need to try to make some changes. Right. And man, how precious was that, yeah, it was done in a joking way, but it was also done at real things, and it made a difference.
Right. Yeah. John, I want to ask you, you brought up groups, going to groups. So you've experienced some connection with other men. What have been some of the struggles with that, and what has it been like in terms of its importance for you?
So I went through a process where we did a foundational type group, a lot like the model that we're doing now at Love Strong, and that was with your wives, and the husbands and wives were together, and it was really a lot of information all at once for about 6 weeks, and then even during that, we would start to separate out into groups with just the men meeting together. And my experience was I was in with a very strange group of men. First of all, I knew they were all addicts, and that just made them weird to start with. Even though that was me, and I was one of those, I just was like, oh my gosh. And I was in a group of I was just in a constant judgment mode, looking around and go, well, at least I'm not that guy. And at least I don't have the problems that guy has. Or I was trying to measure myself kind of up against these other guys. And I really had a fear that I might not measure up, because that's like the base fear, right? Am I good enough? And so I was looking around this group of maybe 7 guys and going, yeah, these are all addicts. These are all, I didn't find really any connection early on. And then we were asked to like reach out and make connection with one another. And I just couldn't see that as a possibility. I just, that would just be, I don't know why I felt so awkward to have any conversation like that. But the idea was, if you had a hard time and you were, if you acted out or needed to be instantly or quickly accountable for that, to reach out to one of these quote unquote brothers. And I put that in quotes because I didn't feel like they were my brothers at all. And I did have an incident where I needed to reach out to somebody. And so I actually called Tyler, and I'm not sure why he picked up right away, but he did, because I know you can't answer the phone to everybody all the time when you're a counselor. And I really needed to be reaching out to other guys. But I called him, and I was really in a state. And he says, you need to reach out to one of your guys. Do you have some phone numbers? I'm like, yeah, of course I do, because we all wrote them down. And then he says, well, call one. And if they don't answer, call another one until you get an answer. And so I called the least offensive of this group guys, and they didn't answer. And then so I dialed another one. And on a third call, finally a guy answered, and I didn't actually feel any connection to him. I really wasn't feeling a lot of connection to anybody, but he was there for me. He said, okay, so what happened? And what are you going to do with that? And we talked, and I probably was like 5 minutes, but that was like the first connection. And it wasn't like a floodgate opening. It just let the first trickle out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you, fast forward, there's a guy in that group that I felt I had nothing in common with. And this is like 8 years ago. And to this day now, he and I are best friends. Mm. And we've become, we really rely on each other, and we don't speak every day like we used to. We don't even get in touch every other week, but once in a while we'll break out and go play some racquetball together or something. And we'll talk about stuff that really matters. We have that connection, and we can talk about how it's hard dealing with a family situation that's going on. And in a way, his family's kind of parallel to mine. His kids are a little bit younger, but we're nearly the same age, and we've found that connection. But this process has changed it, but it doesn't seem, at least for me, it didn't seem to come naturally. It was really difficult to and I'm not sure why. It probably has something to do with having to let somebody else see my weaknesses in order to make that connection. And I in my mind, I understand that vulnerability creates connection, but it's really counterintuitive, or at least it was to me.
Counterintuitive is the right word. It does not come naturally to go out and open up and show people your weaknesses, right? And I love that you're bringing that up, John, and because in opening that up, that's where you've now created these connections and this brotherhood that you have. But that's the conundrum that so many men are in is they're desperate for connection. They're desperate for feeling masculinity, but the last thing they want to do is go be vulnerable. And so it really creates this space of like, I'll just stay isolated and I'll have my addiction soothe me and take care of me or whatever. And that's where things like group therapy, retreats where you connect to other men and really have not just talk about your problems, but have experiences of brotherhood and acceptance and love in your vulnerability, create massive shifts for you. And I love how you're talking about it, John, because you can hear it. And you might connect with him every other week, but we know what you're talking about. You have that brotherhood where it's like, hey, we love each other. We're there for each other. And we support each other.
So John, I've got a question for you, and Brannon just kind of like set this one up for me, but you know that we have an upcoming men's conference happening on September 23rd through the 25th in Bear Lake, Utah. And I know that you've been to actually a couple of our retreats, but I would like for you to maybe just speak to the men's retreat specifically. For any of the listeners that are listening right now, and after having heard what you've just said about connection and vulnerability and courage, could you just speak a little bit to your own experience with the retreat that you attended and any key principles or takeaways that were impactful for you as part of your journey?
Sure. Yeah, it has been a while ago, but when that opportunity came up, I was pretty excited about it and pretty intent on going and doing that. And then when it came, when it came down to it, I think my shame kind of stepped in and was like, what are you doing? What do you think you're gonna? This isn't gonna solve anything. And it was even worse, maybe right when I got there. And I don't know what I was expecting, but I kind of thought that I'd look around and see people I knew, and there was a couple, but there were a lot of people I didn't know. And then here I was right back in that place of, I wonder who these guys are, and I wonder what these guys are going to think of me, and what have I gotten into in this situation. But it wasn't very long, and it started to just become comfortable again. But we did some things as a group, and we paired off and did some activities, and some of the stuff was physically challenging. Some of the stuff was, put you in a vulnerable place to think about where you've been in your journey and recovery, and so you're putting in a difficult space emotionally to share this with new people. And it's interesting just how quickly you get a few guys together that are intent on the same goal and have similar backgrounds, which I think probably you could take any group of men, and inside of 48 hours, you probably could see this form, not just from experience, I know, but especially when everybody's there with the intent to find something, to grow something, and just to step in, and the activities, some of them seemed maybe a little more corny, and then some of them seemed a little just trying to find the purpose in
the ones Tyler ran were the corny ones.
But it was interesting. I remember just like we had like just an obstacle course where you're trying to get from one place to another. It was kind of like the hot lava game where you can't touch, but you had islands that you had to get from one to the other, but you had to get the whole group there. And to watch the process of each person in the group needing to take on a role that is their role, because we each find things where, hey, I can be useful because I am whatever. And one of the guys was just, their role was just to be encouraging to the rest of us trying to figure this out. And natural leaders emerge in the group, and then there's this sense of helping one another to accomplish the goal. And even though it was kind of a simple, could have been like a backyard game you'd play with scouts or something, we came out of it with meaning and with connection to one another. These are guys that just met. Some of us hadn't met before. And I still bump into some of those guys, even though they're not in my regular circles. And I still feel some connection to them. And I remember another activity we had where we were kind of, it seemed like paired off, or maybe a group of three with some goals in mind. And just that feeling of, hey, I'm not on my own, but I got a couple of guys here with me, and we've got to get from point A to point B and accomplish these goals. And just that pride of maybe getting at the competition. I think guys really like competition. I know I do. And like my racquetball friend, he doesn't want to keep score. To him, that's not the purpose. But I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm still beating you, you know, because to me but it's part of that bonding, you know, to wrestle one another and then still, it doesn't pull you apart. It actually pulls you together in that friendly competition. So it was a powerful couple of days. It was fast in that how quickly those bonds form. And it kind of just answers that question, hey, am I enough? Yeah, for these guys, I came out and I stood up and I was enough. And even just in a small way. So I think it helped to answer those questions in your mind and step into your vulnerability a little bit.
The intent behind those type of things like a retreat is to create a shift because you experience something new rather than just sitting in a therapy office talking about your problems, actually to feel something. Tyler, can I ask you a few questions about the retreat?
You bet.
First off, when is the retreat?
Rising Sun Conference is September 23rd through 25th in Bear Lake, Utah.
Yeah, starts at noon on the 23rd, right? Thursday the 23rd.
That's right.
Is food and lodging provided?
This is maybe the best deal we've ever had on one of our retreats because we've had some generous people help us. So your housing is taken care of, your food is taken care of. By the time you pay the ticket price, you're going to be basically getting free experience from Brannon and I.
What is this Christian thing?
This is 100% for Christian men working recovery from sex addiction. That's what it's targeting. And it's targeted at exactly what John's question was today, which was connecting the masculine heart to your recovery, actually going deep into those places inside yourself and finding some of the answers to those questions that we all have as men. And it's there, as you said, Brannon, as an experience.
Yeah. So, and Jesus Christ will be a part of that experience.
100%.
Okay. So where and how do you sign up?
Okay. For anyone who's interested, we have a few slots left. It's risingsunconference.com and it's risingsun, conference.com.
And it's really easy, right? Once you get there, you steps.
Scroll down, sign up. It's $1,000 right now. There's a discount code for anyone who's currently in treatment with you or I, Brannon. Either way, it's a phenomenal deal.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe a couple more questions. Is space limited?
Yes, we've capped it off at 30 men.
Yeah. And once we hit that 30, it's done. So
Yep.
We're full at 30. So I would say if you're interested, get on it now. This is the first time we've really promoted it on the podcast, so it will fill up. So hurry and reserve your spot as soon as you can.
Great, John. I appreciate you being willing to come on. I know that even today was probably a step of courage for you with where you're at in your own pathway. For those who are listening and wondering, maybe they're back to your spot 9 years ago where they maybe haven't even been found out yet, or they just barely had disclosure day. What would you say to them have been some of the most important principles that you've been able to learn, that you've been able to apply to your life that might help somebody else see that there's a pathway through this?
I think probably, and I've been asked this question before, and my go-to answer is probably that connection is key. And I know that that's still in my mind a big part of it. Forming those relationships, and that's just going to allow you to have some borrowed strength, maybe that's outside that you don't feel, but that you can gain when you have those relationships. I also think it's important to just kind of jump in, take whatever step it is that you can take, and then give yourself permission to push a little bit and to maybe put the effort in that's above and beyond what you thought you could. We find out most people can do more than they thought they could. I find that out of myself. It's still part of what I have to use. I have to draw on that idea. I'm not feeling the strength right now, but I know that I have it. So go ahead and push for it. I think that probably one of the things I'm thinking is really important right now is just that compassion for yourself, that ability to love yourself, to have that compassion. Probably one of the most key things to me in this was to be able to look back at the child I was and feel some compassion for that little guy that was broken at the time that he was, or the times that he was, and go, you know what, he was just a little boy and he didn't know any better, and he was doing the best he could, and to just let go of the shame that I feel about those childhood experiences that have kind of set me up on a little bit of a path for failure. And so just the ability to go, you know what, little guy that was me, you're an all right dude, and just have some space for that compassion for yourself.
John, I want to say it's I really appreciate you, and it's kind of fun for me because I don't see you that often. So I get the privilege of kind of from the outside, all of a sudden I run into you and it's like, holy cow, like so much growth, so much progress. And maybe you don't see that because day in and day out, you're just in the grind of it. But when you take an outside look, it's like, wow, you're very different from the first day that I met you. It's like Tyler's daughter. I haven't seen her in 3 months and she's grown like 1.5 feet. But Tyler's like, what do you mean? Like, and I'm like, no, she's grown 1.5 feet. It's that's what I'm seeing in you, John. So keep it up. Just keep doing what you're doing. You are also a warrior for truth and good. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I'm gonna try.
John, thanks for coming on. For those of you listening, if this made a difference for you, please share it with those who you might also think might make a difference for them. And we look forward to seeing some of you at the retreat.
All right. We'll see you guys later.